Season 3, Episode 16. It's the Cup of Mets podcast. I am Ian Bosniak, and we'll be joined momentarily by Robert Venegas and Matthew DeSantis. In today's episode, we'll touch upon the Major League Baseball draft, which has gone on over the last 2 days. Mets selecting Oklahoma State outfielder Kodai Senga. We will dive into him and his scouting report. We'll also touch upon the hot ending to the first half that the Mets had their 5-1 homestand, capping off against the Washington Nationals and the Colorado Rockies. And lastly, we'll look ahead to the second half and the trade deadline and so much more. But before we get going, remember to give us a follow on Instagram, YouTube, and X. We're at Cup of Mets. Subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Head to cupofmets.com for all your latest merch. And last but not least, download that SeatGeek app, punch in code Cup of Mets at first purchase to get $20 off. And with that, let's do it. Gentlemen, episode 16 of season 3. We are halfway through. How we doing on this Monday evening?
Good. The season's flying. I can't believe we're already mid-July. Summer's cruising. Mets are playing good baseball, and we might be buyers this season.
Oh, how the tides have turned, fellas.
Yeah.
I'll take my apology for him in the mail.
We got you.
We're first half winners, in my opinion. But I'm feeling great. All-star week upon us. Home run derby tonight. Nothing but good things. Looking forward to, the second half of the season. So I'm excited.
Without a doubt. And just as a reminder to you guys, I mentioned in the outset, head to cupofmets.com to get all your latest merch, and be sure to download the SeatGeek app, punch in code Cup of Mets at first purchase to get $20 off. So they both said it midway point at the All-Star break. The Derby's tonight. All-Star game is tomorrow. We already know Pete Alonso is in the Derby tonight. He will also be in the All-Star game tomorrow. Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo snubbed. I spoke about that last week, and we could touch upon it later on if we want. But as of last night, however, the Major League Baseball draft, as they switched it over a couple of years ago to the All-Star break, and the Mets made out pretty well. Their pick was pushed back 10 slots due to being over the luxury tax threshold last year. So they chose 19th instead of 9th. Obviously a big drop, but they selected Kodai Senga from Oklahoma State. He's a two-way player. Most likely will wind up bat first, but two-way player. Benge was actually roommates with Nolan McLean, who, I'll say this now because I'll forget, Nolan McLean is sticking to pitching. He is done with the bat. So that two-way experiment is done. The Mets then chose Jonathan Santucci with the 46th overall pick, their second rounder. He's out of Duke, left-hander. Nate Dome was their third-round pick today out of Mississippi State. Eli Serrano, the third. He's an outfielder from NC State. Round 4, Trey Snyder, a high school shortstop. He was the 155th ranked prospect by MLB Pipeline. He was taken in the 5th round by the Mets. Corey Collins, big slugging first baseman from Georgia. He was chosen in the 6th round. And then 7 through 10, Will Watson, a pitcher from USC. Ryan Lambert, a starter from Oklahoma. Jackson Jelkin from Houston, pitcher, and Brendan Girton from Oklahoma. And that's how today capped off. Today was day 2. Again, there's another 10 rounds. It's really wild how many players wind up getting drafted. But focus in on the first 2 here, okay? Kodai Senga was a name that had been on the Mets radar for a while. I felt like it was really Benge and Vance Honeycutt. Those were the 2 names that we were hearing most often when it came to the Mets at 19. Honeycutt wound up going to the Orioles. What do we make on just reading some scouting reports, hearing talent evaluators discuss some of the players that the Mets drafted? I think the Mets did fairly well. They did what they had to do. I liked what they did in the 3rd slot, even though a Nate Dome has had some injury issues. They did that because the slot value, I believe, was close to $1 million, and they knew that they could probably sign him for a little bit less. So I thought that was a smart move. Kodai Senga and Santucci both have 4.22 and a little over $2 million pick values as well. I think the Mets did pretty well. And later on, getting Corey Collins, I mean, overall, good draft so far for David Stearns in his first year.
Yeah, and I've only been able to do a little preliminary reading, but I've heard good things about the high school kid we took, that shortstop. He was like Gatorade Player of the Year, committed to Tennessee. So I'm assuming that 5th round slot is going to take a lot more than what they have to pay him.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So the Trey Snyder pick is probably the one that we're going to look at and see if the Mets actually are able to sign him. Again, 144th overall, but he is committed to Tennessee. He was the Missouri High School Gatorade Player of the Year. And a lot of people love his athleticism. He has great hands, solid arm strength, and he's a very good hitter on top of it all. So makes tons of contact. So yeah, Trey Snyder to me. I'd love personally to me. I love the Carson Benge pick. Obviously, that's a pretty safe thing for me to say. He was the 18th overall prospect going into the draft by MLB Pipeline. And obviously, the Mets got him at 19. I just like his overall game. He's going to test the waters as a two-way player. The Mets said that they'll, give him the opportunity at least. But overall, I thought that getting Carson Benge and then following it up with a left-hander that has a nasty fastball, nasty slider in Jonathan Santucci, I thought was just a great move for them.
Yeah, I mean, he has good stuff. I was reading yesterday. Probably he got drafted last night. He's probably our number 5 starting pitcher, pitching prospect in the system. I mean, um, but I've liked what they've done. I've heard good things about Eli Solano, the outfielder from North Carolina State. He can rip it. He's big, 6'5". When he starts playing more, when he fills in that frame a little bit more, I think you'll start to see some untapped power. But like you said, the Corey Collins pick reminds me so much of the Nick LaRusso from Maryland last year. I feel like he could be a quick riser in our system, but so far I like it. First draft from Chris Gross and David Stearns. Can't really complain.
Yeah, and the Mets honestly did a really good job of doing their due diligence with the college bats. A lot of college players selected for the Mets this year. Usually or from what I remember, the last couple of years, the Mets have been heavy on the high school player pool. And to take advantage of a really good college class of ball players, the Mets did that. Carson Bench, I respect the two-way attitude. Eventually, I do think the Mets tell him that just to focus on outfield. We could probably see him in the corner outfield position, what probably right field, down the line. But I do respect the fact that he wants to try being a two-way player. A guy like Jonathan Santucci, though, I read this that he has a complete repertoire. He knows how to attack the zone and get hitters out on both sides. It's a potential starter long term, and one we're excited about. And we think he could do good things for the Mets organization. So that's always good to hear. Can't have enough arms, especially young college arms, who, again, could potentially be ready by not now, but again, like down the line, 2-3 years down the line. Very, 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 very talented player pool this year. I'm happy with what the Mets did, though.
I agree. Obviously, Gross and Stearns weren't here last year, but I feel like over the last 2 years, there's been a transition in the Mets selecting college players, whether it be pitchers or bats, which for the most part mean a quicker ascension to the major leagues in most scenarios. Obviously, it's dependent on the player, but still, I thought that was great. I know that Jackson Jelkin is one player that's going to be interesting to see if the Mets sign him. Pick value is really low. It's in the 9th round, but he was actually dismissed 2 years into his freshman year at Nebraska due to off the field issues. So he has some makeup concerns, but evidently enough, the Mets felt confident enough to select him with their 9th overall pick. That's still a top 10 pick, so they're not just going to throw it away. So I found that one interesting. But again, I like what they've done. Matt, for someone who goes ahead and oftentimes puts together prospect lists, Carson Benge, Santucci, do they crack your top 10, top 20 right now as is in the Mets organization?
Carson Bench got drafted last night, and he would already be ahead of Colin Hook if I did an updated top 30 for Mets prospects. But you guys know how low I am on Colin Hook. I think that was a terrible pick. If I were the Mets last season, I would have went with the big southpaw Thomas White that the Marlins taken. I just think that you probably had a lot more of an upside with that than Colin Hook. He was a two-way. Colin Hook was a two-sport athlete. He had offers to play D1 football as a quarterback. I don't see. He strikes out a shit ton. I think he's already struck out 130 times this minor league season. So if I was to put a spot, I would probably pencil Benge around 8 above Colin Hook. And but in terms of Santucci, I think he's probably anywhere from 14 to 20, maybe. And you realistically just have to see who we sign from here. But our farm system's getting stronger and stronger by the year. Drew Gilbert just got back. Jacob Reimer played today for the first time all year.
Good news.
Yeah, it is good news. I hope that I hope Gilbert's hamstring doesn't fuck him over. Because those are tricky, especially the way he plays. He's quick, he's dynamic, and he covers all areas of center field. Um, I hope that he comes back to life from the hamstring, but it's really just like a wait and see game, I guess. And I think this was only his second rehab game. I didn't see how he did today for the FCL Mets, but overall, I think a solid haul. Chris Gross knows what he's doing. If you look at the Astros farm system, those are his guys. Gilbert, Clifford, those are his guys. So I trust him and I trust Stearns. I like taking these college arms. Christian Scott was a college arm. He was a reliever, converted to a starting pitcher. Yeah, he hasn't been lights out for us, but he's young. He's a rookie. But he's already shown promising stuff. So trust me, I have all the trust in Stearns. We got, I think, one of the top three president of baseball operation guys in the league. I mean, look at the Brewers. It's not the current GM that brought all those players there. It's David Stern. So I see.
Sure. And just one final note, I agree the farm system's getting much deeper, it's getting stronger, and I would pencil Benge somewhere in between there. Thing that I like about him overall is MLB Pipeline. There are so many different sources that you can go to. Just using MLB Pipeline as an example, because they really give you a good rundown. Some of the scouting grades, they're all out of 70. They gave Benge a 55 hit grade, 55 power, 50 run, 60 arm. I mean, he's got a lethal arm. Somebody posted a video of him gunning out a runner at third base last night on our Twitter account. I mean, he's phenomenal in the field. 55 field in an overall. He's
That
a
was a
50.
dart.
That was a
That
dart.
was a dart.
That was a laser. That was a laser. But they go on to just say, in quote, few college hitters in this class can match Benge's combination of bat to ball skills and high exit velocities. Left-handed hitter, controls the strike zone, uses the opposite field exceptionally well, should have solid power as he continues to grow. Combination of his hitting ability and bat speed. And then as far as he's a great defender with a plus arm, and then he's an intriguing quick armed right-hander that has a fastball which tops out at 96, as well as a solid slider, an average changeup, and has pretty decent control. So again, the feelers are out if he's going to be a two-way player in the Mets system beyond maybe his first year or something along those lines. But I really just love the pick, love the haul. I think the Mets did a good job.
Great. And I saw some Mets fans are like, oh, they took this guy, but there was somebody that was like ranked 37 on MLB Pipeline still available. And I'm like, dude, like it's not like a football draft. Teams don't go by those rankings. Like,
They
because
have their own. They have their own boards. They have
exactly.
completely their own boards.
Hey, they could have fucking. I'll never forget. I don't even know how many years ago. Whenever the Yankees drafted Trey Sweeney, they took him in the first round, and I'm pretty sure MLB Pipeline had him at ranked like 200.
Right. Right. And they also, depending on how much certain teams have to allocate to their draft picks, they make picks based off of how much they think that they can sign them for. So that's another thing as well. The one player that I maybe would have taken with that 19th pick outside of Benge, who, again, that was the right call, was Trey Yasevich, who just a very interesting pitcher. He was drafted by Toronto, a slot after the Mets at 20. East Carolina, absolutely phenomenal last year. Great curveball, fastball, slider, splitter mix. But outside of that, I think the Mets did a great job. And as you said, Matt, we all agreed the farm system is getting much, much deeper. Onto the big league club. We are at a standstill, obviously, with the All-Star break going on. However, the Mets find themselves 49 and 46 in that third wild card slot, a game ahead of both the Diamondbacks and the Padres, joining the Cardinals and the Braves in that three-man wild card group. First and foremost, before we get into anything specific, what a turnaround. And I have to credit Rob because you were the one that there were definitely times that you were down and you said, yeah, maybe I would sell, and I'm pissed and I'm this and I'm that, but you were the one that kind of kept the level head and said, well, let's take it game by game. They've righted the ship, man. They've righted the ship, and that 5-1 homestand to end the first half really put a stamp on potentially what the Mets could do moving forward.
No, yeah, definitely. Again, it's a long season. There's 162 games for a reason, and again, I hate to bring up the same example, but a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks last year, they were the third wild card team. They squeaked in, and then they made a World Series run. Not saying the Mets are going to make a World Series run, not saying the Mets are going to win the World Series, but again, over a course of a 162 game season, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I understand May was putrid. It was horrible. Again, no other word to put it how May went for the Mets. But we always talked about them going on that run. They went on that run in June. Thank you, Grimace. Thank you, Jose Iglesias, a big part of this run.
Oh my
And
God.
and honestly, like in years past too, like past Mets teams, like they would go on this run and then kind of fold. But they've gone on this run and they keep going, regardless if they lost three in a row. Whether it was when they went to Pittsburgh or before they went on that road trip, but they still kept afloat. And now we're 3 games over. We're 4 games back from the Braves, where you looked at the standings in May and you were like, shit, sell, sell, sell. But it's a great thing to see, and I'm glad it's all coming together. Again, tough loss Sunday, but at the end of the day, they gotta just use this All-Star break as rest and refuel, and then we're back to business on Friday.
To piggyback off of that, and then one other thing after that, just because I'm going to end up forgetting. Rob, what you said, you hit the nail on the head. The Mets sucked in May, cruised in June, and then typically in a season where the Mets aren't full throttle, first place, going, they normally teeter back. And they won the first 2 games in July, then went on a 3-game losing streak, as you alluded to, lost the final 2 in Washington, and lost the series opener against Pittsburgh on the 5th of July. And you kind of said to yourself, shit, are the Mets moving back into that territory that they were in May? And then they went ahead, they ripped off the next 2 wins against Pittsburgh. They lost the series finale, so they split 2 4-game series to open up the month, and then they go ahead and they win the next 5 at home pretty decisively outside of some near bullpen collapses. They swept the Nationals, took 2 of 3 from Colorado, lost a tough one yesterday, but all in all, just I think that the Mets have done a great job with the position that they've put themselves in. And another thing too, whenever we've been, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but whenever in past years when I've been excited about the Mets as they trickle into the All-Star break, and you say to yourself, the Mets have a chance. All of a sudden they lose several games right before the All-Star break, and you go in with a sour taste in your mouth. This year, it was completely different. Yesterday, I was at the ballpark. I saw the Mets lose a very winnable game. Was I upset? Yeah. 5 games over 500 at the All-Star break, no one would have expected. That would have been great. But I wasn't mad because of the way that they finished. A 5-1 homestand, unbelievable. And then to open up at Miami, you don't take anything for granted. But I think that the Mets are in a good situation after this last homestand.
Trust me, I agree. I definitely agree. This second half is going to be crucial. We need to see more out of fucking Pete Alonso. I swear to God, I'm so sick of
Our
watching
only
him
All-Star.
on a slider that's fucking 4 feet out of the batter's box and watch him swing and miss. Like, brother, like, come on. Like,
Yeah, yeah, boys. I know I was solo dolo last week. You both had things to do. I kind of spoke about it in a little bit of depth, and we don't have to get into it in depth because the All-Star game's tomorrow. But what are your thoughts, both of you guys? What are your thoughts on the fact that Pete Alonso is an All-Star out of the Nimos and the Lindors of the world?
I mean, I just think MLB did it for money reasons. I'm not trying to say that Pete Alonso doesn't deserve it, but when you come out and say I'm only doing the home run derby if I make the All-Star game, of course, as the people that decide who's going to play in the All-Star game, they're going to want a guy like Polar Bear to be at the home run derby, 1 and 2. Obviously, he's good enough to be an All-Star. Hence, he's been one before. So I'm sure they looked, numbers aside, they were like, hey, he's that type of player. We need him in this week, in these week's events. And let's pull let's pull the trigger, as in let's give the Mets Pete Alonso as their only All-Star.
yeah, that's bullshit, bro. Fucking Lindor, so deserving. Nemo, so deserving. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's the fans that are voting on it. Mets fans got to be better. Mets fans got to be better. I saw one account, it was Braves account, and this person was like, I've made like 20 different emails just to vote for players. I was like, okay, like, yeah, that's nuts. You're kind of insane for doing that, but they got dedication.
I would
You
love
want
to
your
do that.
players in the
I just
All-Star
don't have the
game?
time. I don't have the
Get
time.
out.
Yeah,
Did any of you guys
I voted
vote
once.
for?
I voted once,
I
twice.
voted every day for like 20 days, but then I realized it was like, you do your 5 entries a day,
Yeah.
and then
Mm.
it's
I'm sorry though, but Sandy Alderson said it best, bro. When David Wright lost to Pablo Sandoval, how does a big market city like New York lose to a city like San Francisco? I'm not comparing city sizes, populations, none of that, but
even
we're big
even
enough to vote in our guys, and and we're always on our phones anyway, so why not just do it once or twice a day?
yeah, and even towards the last, I think it was the last ballot update before they named the finalists, Orlando Arcia was ahead of Francisco Lindor. Brandon
Again, yeah,
Nimmo, I think, was like eighth, ninth, or 10th. Nimmo
yeah,
Nimmo's having, not only an all-star campaign, but you could see him at the end of the year being in the MVP conversation. He's on pace to drive in over 100 runs, hit over 25 home runs. I say I don't know. It's just bullshit to me, as Matt said. But
yeah.
yesterday, I know I mentioned it was a winnable game. The Mets were down 5-3. After the Mets took the lead 3-2, Quintana gave up a couple dingers, left 5-3. The Mets ended up losing 8-5. I had a big problem after the Mets brought in Phil Maton, who the Mets did acquire from Tampa Bay for a player to be named later. They took Maton out, who is definitely capable of pitching more than an inning. They took him out, and they brought in Adrian Hauser in a 2-run game in the 7th inning. Hauser proceeded to give up 3 runs. Mets ended up losing 8-5, so they would have tied the game. What are your thoughts on how the Mets should be using Adrian Hauser, since he's shown to have a bit of success, but in those high leverage situations, I mean, you just don't put him there. Also, you're going into the All-Star break. You're going to tell me you can't use some of your high leverage relievers. You're going to give them rest for what? They're going to rest for the next week.
Yeah, I'm so like divided on Adrian Hauser. I feel like he could be a somewhat decent reliever, but I don't know. It's hard. He sometimes he looks like his stuff could be pretty good, but then he fucking gets shelled. So I really don't know.
So here's my question to you, Ian. And I know you probably don't know because obviously you're not in the dugout or whatever. But like, did you know who else they have? Who else did they have available?
No, Rob, I don't.
No, I'm just asking because
No, I
again, like
don't.
this is the inner coach of me coming out, right?
No,
So
yeah. I guess
go ahead.
I haven't looked too deep into that. I guess maybe until,
Okay.
I start to complain, but there had to have been other players, pitchers
No,
available.
yeah, and don't get me wrong, I agree with you guys in terms of like they have a week to recover and this and that, but a good friend once always told me when I started coaching, you always go with your freshest arm. Granted, Adrian Hauser doesn't pitch every other day because he's a long reliever. He pitches multiple innings. A guy that is capable of pitching multiple innings, right? So I'm trying to put myself in Mendoza's shoes, right? The game before he had a situation with Jose Budo. Guy was dealing. Didn't take him out, you know? Ended up getting the win, saving Christian Scott. Basically keeping us in the game, right? So I'm assuming as a manager myself, a 14U manager myself, um, comparing it to MLB manager. But again, you always go with your freshest arm. So Hauser probably didn't pitch a couple days after or before that, his last appearance. I'm not really sure. But again, the way he's been pitching lately and how he can offer you multiple innings to get to hopefully keep you in that 2-run deficit, and then hopefully the Mets offense ties it up, then give it to your big guns. That's a different story. Unfortunately, Tovar was feeling it, hit 2 home runs that game. Guy swings and misses a lot, but for a guy that swings and misses a lot, he was 3 for 4 yesterday. Looked really good at the plate.
He's
Um,
gonna be the kid's
yeah,
in.
and he's going to be good. But unfortunately, just this decision didn't work out. Do I blame Mendoza? Not really. Do I blame the pitch selection? Yeah, a little bit because you're throwing a slider right down the dick. Of course, it's going to go over the fence. Granted, offense can't always be on 24/7, but a two-run lead is more doable than a 4-run lead, obviously. So it
Yeah,
was deflating when he gave up that home run. I did turn off the TV when it happened, but again,
that's
you
kind of
you've
why
seen it. You've seen it a lot though with Mendoza with his moves. He makes a move and it doesn't work out, or it does work out.
Yeah.
It happens. It's baseball.
Right. And I am not sitting here blaming Mendoza. I recognize that Hauser hadn't pitched in X amount of days. But if it was 7-3, 8-3 when you
Yeah.
were putting Hauser in, that there's a difference
Mhm.
there. I'm looking back, Friday night, Diekman only recorded 1 out. Granted, he was awful and Diekman should be DFA'd, but they had Diekman available, right? Phil
Okay.
Maton, he recorded 1 out on Friday and then pitched an inning yesterday. Maybe he could have gone a little bit further than 1 inning. Adam Ottavino hadn't pitched the previous 2 games, and then in the series finale against Washington, it was a 7-0 game. So the Mets didn't need to use any of their relievers. So I just feel like there were definitely some other options that the Mets could have gone to, but the bullpen in and of itself is a concern. So it's not just Hauser
No, definitely. Yeah.
that we should bitch and moan about. Quickly, what is both of your confidence levels as we head into the second half here before we touch upon what the Mets should do at the trade deadline?
What are my expectation levels is what you asking?
Confidence.
Expectation levels, confidence
Confidence.
levels, 1 through 10, whatever you want to give.
All right, so to begin with, my expectations for this season weren't really high. So to see us doing this with guys like Jose Iglesias, like 1 year deals in Harrison Bader, Luis Severino. Okay. I think that they had a good approach going into the offseason, but do we have the roster to actually like go deep into the playoffs against a team like the Philadelphia Phillies or Atlanta Braves, or I'm not even gonna go to the Los Angeles Dodgers, but like, do we have that core foundation? So if are we going to be a playoff team trying to throw out DJ Stewart, who has been awful? There's guys in AAA that deserve a shot over DJ Stewart. I'm sorry, I don't know what he has on Steve Cohen or Stearns, but they're keeping him there for a fucking reason. He should have been. He has an option left. He should have been sent down. They should have brought up a Luke Ritter or something like that, who has 19 home runs in AAA. I think the Mets lately have been letting a lot of their talent get to AAA, and then they fucking start to stink. Like Vassell, like Hamill, both those guys have not played well this year. It's
Hamill had a
actually,
good start the other night, I have to say.
yeah, he did. But aside from that, if you look at his numbers, they have not been pretty. So it's eye opening because we have talent that's getting up to Syracuse, the top level, and they got there by actually playing well. But then when they get to Syracuse, they're fucking sucking. So I I'm pretty sure, I think it's Vassell that has like a 9 something ERA over his starts. His trade value is probably dropping. I've seen tweets and stuff about him being a part of maybe a deal for a reliever, which I mean I would be more than fine with, considering they're going to let him rot at AAA anyways. So um, I think just the Mets approach needs to be a smart one. I wouldn't go out and start sending off the guys in our farm system when we're actually just trying to build that up again. So are you going to really start unloading like good? Because let's what trade already happened? That was Washington, right? They got a nice return for a reliever that pretty much sucks.
They got a compensation
Um,
pick as well.
yes,
Hunter Harvey.
yes, they got to pick like 9. So it's like, dude, it's like, are we going to be paying that steep of a price when we know that we have an influx of young talent like a Clifford, Luis Angel Acuna, Gilbert? Are we gonna and then we have pitchers that are coming through the ranks. Are we gonna start mortgaging our future for this
No,
year's roster? Do you think that they have the roster right now that is ready to go compete for a series? I personally don't think so. I trust me, I love what they've done. I think that they, like Rob said before, May sucked. So everything since May has been more than fun in Mets land. The grimace shit, OMG, like it's been fun. It's been a fun year.
So
but
what
what
are
the
your
fuck's your
expectations and
confidence
confidence going
level?
into second half?
Yeah, what the fuck's your confidence level here? 1 through
All
10,
that
man.
talking that didn't even answer the question.
You're talking about the
So
deadline
All right,
now.
it stems
bro.
off AAA.
You're
Your
talking about the
confidence and
deadline
expectation.
now.
What's my confidence level? I mean, I think at best they win 85 games. At best.
and sneak in the playoffs. Are you confident?
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
really,
one
bro. Do
through
you know
10.
what team
What's your
we've been rooting
confidence
for
level?
since we were kids? How many times have they disappointed us?
Too many, but I'm numb to
You
it
guys
right
can
now.
be confident. I'm not.
Yo, can you just give
Okay,
us a
so
number?
no,
One.
he's not confident. He's not confident. No.
All right, all right.
85. I think 85 wins the absolute best.
Well, 85.
Okay.
Well, 85 gets us in the playoffs. So,
Okay.
Rob, before we dive back into the trade deadline, since Matt brought that up, before we dive back into the trade deadline, what's your confidence level right now with the current club, 1 through 10?
I mean, listen, all signs are leading to good things, right? Senga might come back or is coming back, and apparently his next scheduled start might be in the big leagues. Who knows? But he's on track to come back. So there's your other arm in the starting rotation. Who knows if they go 5 or 6 man, whatever. But my confidence level, especially with a team that started off with like a starting pitching staff of like Severino, Minaya, Quintana, and getting all this hate, and they're really pitching well right now at a high level. Honestly, it's the bullpen, bro. They got to make moves in the bullpen, and this next week and a half is very vital. My confidence level, I mean, I'm kind of shaky to be honest. I'm at a 6 or 7 because again, Matt does make a great point. They always do this, then they kind of shit the bed, and we're kind of known for that. Now, do I think it's gonna happen? No, I don't, because I think the offense is good enough to survive. I do. 1 through 9, they're hitting great. Iglesias needs to stay. He needs to play more. Vientos has been awesome, but all in all, I do have confidence in the offense. It's more so, do I have confidence in the other half? I have confidence in the starting pitching, but the other half of that is the bullpen, and I don't have confidence in them. So it depends on the type of moves they make. I wouldn't overpay, like Matt is saying, like Hunter Harvey. We fucked him up the last couple games, and now he got traded for a compensation pick. That's kind of wild to me. But these next 3 series are vital. 4 against the Marlins, 2 against the Yankees, and then you got what? 3 against the Braves, 4
Yep.
against the Braves.
Four.
So, and
And
this reminds me, not to compare teams because they ended up winning the World Series, but the 2021 Braves, right? They were kind of not in the same position, but they were in that week where they kind of stunk. And then they're like, oh, we're going to sell, da da da. Then they got Jock Peterson, they got Jorge Soler, they got Rosario, right? And Duvall or something like that.
Yep.
And then they went on to win the World Series. Now, am I saying the Mets are going to do that? Should they do that? No. But again, these next 3 series, 4 series are very vital. And it's gonna basically make or break the season. So I am confident in the offense. I am confident in the starting pitching. I'm not confident in the bullpen. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. And I agree with you. I was going to say around a 6 or 7 as well. That's where I am with my confidence level, but I could see it going one of 2 ways. You guys both mentioned the trade deadline and what they should beef up. It's known. They need bullpen arms and they need them fast. It was funny because last week I mentioned on the podcast that what David Stern should be doing right now is he should be going out to teams and looking for relievers that have a decent track record that currently have 4.5, 4.8, even 5 ERAs, but maybe the teams are undervaluing them or not using them in right situations and trade something little for them. And what did they do the next day? They got Phil Maton, right? So it's those types of moves that I want to see the Mets make as we move towards the trade deadline. Listen, we're going to get back and it's going to be July 19th. So there's only 12 days to spare before the deadline, right? So the Mets are going to find out really quickly through these next several games right after the All-Star break if they are going to be legitimate buyers. Now, Matt, I agree with you. And I've said this before. I said it last week, and I think I've said it with you. I've said it multiple times. I think the Mets need to have a list 1 through 20 of prospects that they are not trading across all levels, no matter what, whether it's a player to be named later, whatever the case may be. This is not the year to go all in. You're not mortgaging any future. So we can get that out of the way. The Mets aren't doing that. I love what Rob just said, though. You go ahead and you look at little pieces that the Mets can improve upon. Matt, you were talking about what does DJ Stewart have over the Mets front office's head. Currently, the Mets have DJ Stewart and Ben Gamel on the active roster. They could go ahead and I'm only using this guy as an example because we saw him the other day, but Jesse Winker, right? I don't know what teams are going to be wanting for Jesse Winker, but the Mets could also use another left-handed bat in the outfield. Okay. So those are the 2 areas that I would look to. Bullpen wise, they got to beef it up. I'm not paying an arm and a leg. Don't get me wrong. But I think now that you've seen the development of Vientos, as well as the development of other players within the system, I think it makes a guy like Brett Beatty expendable. I know you mentioned before Mike Vasile, his value has dropped. There are teams that are definitely going to still like what he can bring to the table. We're not going to trade all of these guys, but a Colin Huck, maybe you make him available. I understand that he's very young, but a team may value him more than the Mets might. Kevin Parada is another one that his stock has fallen, but he could probably still get something in return. Several pitchers that I've just written down, and I think, Rob, you mentioned Aroldis Chapman a couple weeks ago. But Aroldis Chapman, Beeks of the Rockies, Andrew Chafin, who we almost signed like I feel like 10 times, John Brebbia of the White Sox, Michael Kopech of the White Sox, Trevor Richards of the Blue Jays, and Carlos Estevez of the Angels are just a couple names that are going to be out there for the taking. And I think that the Mets should act if they go ahead and take 3 or 4 from Miami. I think they should act a couple days prior to the deadline. Get another arm in there.
Yeah, no, and clearly we're doing our due diligence because even before the Phil Maton trade, there was a story that David Stearns has been looking in the reliever market for quite some time now. So I love that list, by the way, Ian. One name that pops up to me and it's very underrated. He's having a decent year. Dylan Florio from the Nationals. That's another one. And you mentioned Jesse Winker, man. Maybe Stearns pulls out a package like he did with the Brewers and got Tyrone Taylor and Hauser for such and such. Maybe he does the same thing with the Nationals. Now, who knows if Washington would want to trade with us because we're right there in the thick of things for the wild card. But at the end of the day, they have had history in making trades amongst each other. So that would be something, especially if Marte is going to be out forever, man. We need another outfielder. I love Tyrone Taylor, I do, but he needs to platoon. And Ben Gamel hasn't seen the field, and then DJ Stewart's hitting a $180. So, again, you can always improve in certain areas. And the Mets right now need a corner outfielder, and they need some bullpen help. So, I love those names, by the way. Carlos Estevez is another one that I think the Mets should look into, especially because the Angels they stink. So,
Yeah, they'll
They
probably give
suck.
him for a bag of Rollings baseballs. Just
Yeah.
like fucking Nate, we got Dominic. We traded them Dominic Leone, bro.
Listen, yeah, it's been done before. We've fleeced the Angels before, so may as well try to do it again. The issue is
That was
that
under the goat, though. That was under the goat.
that was under
Billy
the
Epler.
GOAT, Billy Upler. Yeah, but I think it all goes back to initially what we said in the beginning, and I think next week when we record, we'll have more clarity because the market will develop a little bit more. But the fact of the matter is that the Nationals were able to get a prospect as well as a compensation pick for a Hunter Harvey. So
Prospects now
yeah,
after
so
they
essentially two
records off.
prospects. So the value for relievers is high right now across Major League Baseball and the markets. But I definitely do think, given where the Mets are, especially if they come out of the gate hot, do well against a Marlins, split, take 3 or 4 against the Marlins, split the 2-game set against the Yankees, and then try to take 2 of 3 or 3 or 4 from Atlanta, whatever it is. Then the Mets they're still in that wild card race. You go ahead and you do what you do. Again, do the Mets have the roster to say that they're going to beat the Phillies or the Dodgers? Not necessarily. But as Rob said before, you saw what the Diamondbacks did last year. We've seen teams as well. No one expected the Braves to win in 21. No one expected the Nationals to win in 19. Okay. Fuck. No one expected the Cardinals to win in 2006. They were 83-79 after the year. They won the Central because the Central sucked and they beat a juiced Mets team and a juiced Tigers team. Things can happen. Things can happen.
Yeah,
And I
so,
think improving the bullpen now, as well as adding a left-handed bat, is of the utmost importance right now as we go ahead over the next week. And I hope next time we touch base, there will be more rumors and rumblings. I know that we mentioned Luke Ritter before, but internally, pieces that can help. Something that I heard the other day that I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say about this. Okay. Brandon Sprout, okay, who has absolutely burst onto the scene this year. He's a top 100 prospect per MLB Pipeline, as well as Baseball America, Baseball Prospectus. Next year, you could conceivably see him within the top 50 in baseball, top 10 maybe in right-handed starting pitchers. He's gone through 2 levels this year. He's currently in Binghamton. He's 4-0 with a 2.05 ERA, 52 Ks in 48 innings overall in the season. He's got a 171 ERA. There was talk the other day that the Mets might think that Sprout could be a bullpen option late in the season for the Mets should they be in the thick of it and they need somebody to come up and overpower hitters. From a development standpoint, do you guys like that idea? What would you do in that scenario?
I mean, wouldn't mind to see him. But like I said before, there's guys at AAA like Blade Tidwell who might like you should probably consider. It's like I don't understand what they're doing at AAA where these pitchers aren't even fucking making it up to the big league. So,
Well,
um,
Tidwell's the outlier between Hamill and Vasil though, because he's pretty pitching pretty decently with
yeah,
AAA. I think Tidwell also is an option. I think the thing with Sproat is that he can come up and just overpower hitters for an inning. He can come up and be an enigma with his arsenal, and then the Mets can storm away and not pitch him for a couple of days. So I think that's the intrigue with Sprout. And again, he's just 23 years old, right? And it's not like he's a spring chicken, 19, 20, 21 years old. He's going to be in Syracuse next year. I mean, you don't know. Maybe he could crack the rotation next year. The Mets get a compensation pick next year for bringing him north with them. You know, you never know since that rule has been instituted. Sprout is obviously very close to being a major league pitcher. So who knows? Maybe he's somebody that could make an impact for the Mets down the stretch.
That's an interesting article you read there, but I don't mind it. I mean, again, young kid, 23 years old, arm's still fresh. He's been in big time games, so why not try it if they think, it could work, obviously. But again, the biggest thing with me is down the line, right? If you're going to use him as a reliever now, um, but you see him as a starter down the line, then we're going to have to, Mendoza's going to have to play it smart. I trust him, but again, do you see him as a top 5 starting pitcher in your organization, or do you see him as a reliever now and then down the line, what is he still going to be a reliever, or is he going to try to crack the starting rotation?
I
That's my
think
only
that
question. But again, I
sure.
do it. I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you bring him up. I think that if they were to bring him up, I think you bring him up as a reliever, whether it be 1 inning or 2 innings, and they'll manage his workload and his days off appropriately. But long
Mhm.
term, he's definitely a starting pitcher. I think he's a top
Yeah.
2 or 3 in a rotation. He's got lethal stuff. He could even be a 1. He might be an ace.
Yeah.
remember
Right.
Garrett Croquette started as a reliever as well. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
And now he's dealing.
Yeah. I feel like there are so many players. Chris Sale, didn't he also come up and pitch out of the pen a little bit before he started a game with the Sox? Whether I'm
No
right
idea.
or whether I'm right or wrong, probably wrong, but again, it's happened before, and I don't think it's completely out of the realm, especially if the Mets aren't able to get the value relief wise that they want if the market is just flooded with buyers and the price tags are too high. You might be able to see something like that. Even a Dom Hamill or a Mike Vasil or someone along those lines that we've mentioned, Tidwell, we could see them up. We don't know. It just depends on kind of how the deadline shakes out and how much teams are asking for certain players. Rob, you mentioned Kodai Senga. Just a few final notes here before we wrap up. You mentioned Kodai Senga. He pitched 4 2/3 the other day in his third or fourth rehab outing. Looked very, very good. They're saying that his next start might be in the major leagues after the All-Star break. They most likely will go to a 6-man rotation. Christian Scott staying up with the big league club. How big of an impact does Kodai Senga make for the second half Mets?
I think you have to think about it along these lines. Like as he's like a trade deadline acquisition. I like we've talked about, I would go for a bat and bullpen. I wouldn't go trading for a starting pitcher because those are pricey. They're pricey. I would consider Kodai Senga as our big, coming back from injury, and we adding him every 6th day is better than trotting fucking Tyler McGill out on the 6th day or something. Like you're gonna get better results from Kodai Senga, which will then lead to wins during those starts. So I think that getting him back will be huge for the ball club and for the rotation. And then they realistically, we have pretty good bullpen pieces. We just got to add another guy or two. Danielle Nunez has been fantastic this year. I think I'm very happy he got returned to us in the Rule 5 draft from San Francisco.
Hopefully Reed
Yeah. No,
Garrett's
I
not
mean,
too hurt.
yeah, that too. And Sean Reed Foley hopefully comes back as good as he was. But to answer your question, Senga, I mean, I reiterate, or I actually said this a couple episodes ago when you guys were like, sell, sell, sell. And I said the Mets are going to get two arms. One, who is it? Christian Scott, he's back, and two is Kodai Senga. So there you go. I was right again, but no big deal. Anyways, I think obviously it's a big impact, man. He's an all-star type starter. The six-man rotation is going to benefit him because again, that's what they did last year in terms of his days rest and getting him acclimated to the MLB. It's going to work. I think it's going to work out fine for the Mets, not only for Senga but for the team in general. Again, you know, Alvarez is back. Pitching staff's been great. We were complaining about they couldn't get past 5 innings. Now every other start, it's a competitive start, quality start. Just adding another pitcher who can give you a quality start is huge, obviously. So it's good. It's good to like I always say, never hurts to have enough arms. So I'm very happy to hear that he's doing well. We had discussed that he wasn't even going to pitch in 2024 months ago, but I'm glad that he's back or he's coming back, and again, just more fans at the ballpark and more energy in the City Field. So that's always a good thing as well.
Getting the ghost back to City Field is going to be huge for them. He'll probably be on a pitch limit, innings limit, whatever it may be, but having his presence on the mound, even if it's for 4 or 5 innings every sixth day, is going to be huge because, again, they will go with a six-man rotation. That's already kind of set in stone.
Hell yeah.
With all that being said, we touched upon the trade deadline before, and you guys weren't on last week, so I do just want to mention the report that came out a week and a half ago and your thoughts on that. The Mets potentially dangling a veteran starting pitcher to get bullpen help in return, since the price of starting pitchers would be high, whether it be a Severino, a Minaya, or Quintana. Would you guys do something like that if it means getting bullpen help, or do you think that it would mess with the team on the field every fifth day, sixth day, as well as off the field, since we know that they're a pretty tight-knit group?
Yeah, unfortunately, to give to receive. So, this kind of reminds me of '06 when the Mets gave up Xavier Nady for Oliver Perez. Xavier Nady was a good Met. He was a team guy, and,
Wow.
and we had to make that trade just to, bolster the starting rotation. But yeah, obviously when you mentioned that, those were the names I was thinking of. Mania has a team option for next year or player option. No, team option, right?
He's
Uh,
on for 3 years, I thought.
He's on for next year.
Oh, okay, even better. So I think he's more valuable in that sense. But again, I do agree with you in terms of like kind of fucking around with the team chemistry. You lose a guy like Sevi or Quintana or even a Mania, maybe players get butthurt. But at the end of the day, we're trying to win, and it's a business. So I do believe that I'm not gonna say it might happen, or I do believe that it is gonna happen. But those are the names that I thought of once you brought it up. David Stearns is known for trades like this, man, whether it's good for now or good for the long term. So you never know. You never know. But again, hopefully they all stay. But at the end of the day, we got to do what's best for the ball club.
Agreed. And honestly, I would think that, I don't know. I mean, I trust David Stearns if he thinks he's getting good value back in a guy like Quintana or somebody like that. I
Exactly.
say go ahead
Yeah.
and do it. If you think we've already seen him pick, steal Luis Torrens from the Yankees for 100 grand. He's already made moves that like people were probably like, "Oh, what was that?" But then it actually translated to the field. So I think if they could get a good return for a starting pitcher, then you have to do it.
You brought up Quintana. I think that he is somebody who he's been on a really, really hot stretch outside of yesterday. And I think he's someone that would intrigue teams. And I think the Mets line of thinking is, yeah, we have a Mike Vasil and a Dom Hamill who haven't been good in AAA, but we know that their stuff is major league ready. Well, translate, that's another story. But what they can go ahead is, considering they want a six-man, they could easily, once Kodai comes back, they could easily take out Quintana, trade him for a reliever, and then move Jose Budo from the bullpen to the rotation, and Jose Budo will be that starter, because I think we're all in agreement. We love Budo. We love his stuff, his makeup, and what he brings to the club. So there's definitely some things that the Mets are going to be doing over the course of the next 2 weeks leading up to the trade deadline, whether it be externally, internally, but we shall see. We shall see. All right, gentlemen. So again, the first half wrapped up, and we want to dish out some grades. I'm not going to dish out any grades. I'm going to be impartial. I'm going to leave it up to you two. All right. So I'm going to go down the depth chart. Okay. We'll start with the pitchers, and we'll start with Rob, since he's the tenured vet here, give me a grade on each player, and we're going to do this quick. I don't want any explanations, anything. I want grades. Okay, Rob, Jose Budo.
B plus.
Matt, Edwin Diaz.
C.
Jake Diekman.
F.
Adrian Hauser.
D.
Oh, jeez. Sean Manaea.
D.
Yeah, I was gonna say B plus. Yeah.
All right. Matt, Phil Maton.
I mean, we acquired him like fucking 2 minutes ago, but
Incomplete.
all right, B. I guess.
Incomplete.
Robbie, Daniel Nunez.
Oh, A.
I agree with that one.
Eric Orzi.
We haven't seen much out of him.
Incomplete.
Yeah, I agree. Incomplete.
Come on, dude. Those reverse splits or something else.
All right, bro.
Robbie, Adam Ottavino.
Oh, fucking F.
David Peterson.
Hey, he's fucking killed it this year. He looks like an
Yeah.
actual pitcher. He
Yep.
looks no complaints on David Peterson.
Yep. Jose Quintana.
B minus.
I agree. B minus.
Christian Scott.
C plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Luis Severino.
A minus. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Danny Young.
C.
C minus.
Catchers. Francisco Alvarez.
Oh, A.
Luis
I'll give him-
Torrens.
I'll give Luis Torrens an A too.
Yeah. Yeah. A. 100%.
Yeah.
His arm is a rocket.
Moving to the infielders. Peter Alonso.
B.
Disappointing.
Whoa.
I feel the B. I feel like we always have high expectations for him, so that's why I'm gonna say C plus.
I was gonna say C plus too, but I'm not giving grades. Candelita.
Fucking
A.
A plus, bro.
A.
A plus on the field and off the field, baby.
Yeah,
Everything.
5-star
more.
song too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great one. Francisco Lindor.
A.
A.
Jeff McNeil.
F.
C minus.
Whoa.
I'm
C
being
minus.
generous. Yeah, I'm being generous.
Yeah, that's really fucking generous. Mark Vientos.
B plus. A minus.
Yeah, what I was gonna say. In that he's shown that he can be a good player.
Yeah. Harrison Bader. Moving to the outfielders.
A minus.
Ben Gamel, Matt.
Fucking F.
Oh, come on. He runs the base as well.
Yeah. Brandon Nimmo, Robbie.
He shouldn't be on the
Brandon
team.
Nimmo, I'll go A minus as well.
Okay. DJ Stewart.
D.
That's nice of you. Rob. Tyrone Taylor.
Honestly, I like him. B. I'll give him a B. He's been
Agree.
he's been serviceable.
I probably would have given him like a C plus. He's been good, serviceable, but the bat's really slowing down and he's been awful with runners in scoring position. But I'll leave that up to you guys. You guys are the judges here. And last but not least, designated hitter, JD Martinez.
I think he started slow, but kind of picked up. C plus.
I'll give him a B as well. I'm a generous grader.
I'd give a B or
Alright.
B plus. I mean, I don't think June would have happened without him. Point blank.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And
I
plus,
give
he showed
him-
up. He showed up 2
Yeah.
weeks after the actual season started. So
Fuck it, I'll give him an A for June, and then kind of like a C plus, B minus for the rest of the
I got a question for you. Are we done with the players or no?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Ian, Carlos Mendoza.
Ooh, Carlos Mendoza. I'm gonna give a B plus. Reason being, 3 games over. I think they could be in a little bit of a better position right now. He's made some weird bullpen maneuvers, but one, he always seems to have the next game in mind while focusing on the game at hand, which is something that I really like. B, yes, he was the bench coach for the Yankees for X amount of years, so he's used to New York, but the Mets fan base is rabid, and after their awful May, Citi Field was literally about to come down. We were questioning if the players have lost faith in Mendoza or if he lost the clubhouse, the way that he's rectified things is unbelievable. I saw when he got ejected on Friday night, Brandon Nimmo give him a nice little slap in the ass as he was walking down the tunnel. I'm not a major league player, but when I played, I never gave my manager a slap on the ass. So, and I, as a coach, I don't expect my players to give me a slap on the ass, right? So, there must be some good camaraderie there. And I like the way that he's handled the media as well. He's been really transparent with everybody. Again, I like what he's done. First year manager, B plus. Mendoza's been good. All righty, guys. So as we wrap up here, episode 16 of the Cup of Mets podcast, just looking ahead, beginning Friday after the home run derby tonight. The All-Star game is tomorrow. It'll be Paul Skeens of the Pirates for the National League against Corbin Burns for the Orioles. Just what everyone wants to see. And then Friday, the Mets kick off a 4-game series in Miami, followed by 2 at Yankee Stadium, and then 4 against Atlanta. So to me, those 4 in Miami, got to take 3 at least. I need a split with the Yankees. And I think we'll touch base before the Braves series, so we'll hold off on that.
All right.
Boys, any final words before we hop off here?
It's just crazy that we're already at All-Star break. And then we got the home run derby tonight. So let's go enjoy that. Let's go Polar Bear Pete.
Yeah, let's go, Pete.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Nah, just enjoy the ride. I mean, again, it goes fast. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, like I always say. And most importantly, let's go Mets.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As a reminder, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Follow us on Instagram, X, and YouTube. We are at Cup of Mets. On Instagram, we currently have a giveaway going on right now, a Casey Stengel bobblehead, so be sure to hop into that. Again, that's on our Instagram. Head to cupofmets.com to get all the latest merch. And last but not least, download that SeatGeek app, punch in code Cup of Mets at first purchase to get $20 off. For Matt DeSantis and Robert Venegas, I'm Ian Bosniak. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the All-Star break, and let's go Mets.